Why did Buddhism and Jainism gain Kshatriya patronage? The 4th century BCE marked a fundamental shift in Indian religious and social life through the rise of the Shramana tradition. This period fundamentally altered who had power to commission art and what values that art would express. Buddhism and Jainism emerged as major religions during the 4th century BCE, both rooted in the Shramana tradition, a movement emphasizing ascetic practice and individual spiritual pursuit. These faiths rejected the ritualistic framework of Vedic religion that had dominated earlier centuries. Both Buddhism and Jainism directly opposed the Varna system, the hierarchical division of society into Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, and the Jati or caste system built upon it. They offered spiritual paths open to all people regardless of birth status, fundamentally challenging Vedic orthodoxy. Kshatriya rulers, the warrior class second only to Brahmins in Vedic hierarchy, grew skeptical of Brahmanical supremacy and its claim to ritual authority over political power. They actively patronized Buddhism and Jainism as religions that elevated their authority without Brahmin intermediaries. The patronage shift caused seismic changes in the religious and social structure of the Gangetic Valley, the heartland of Indian civilization. Art, architecture, and religious expression all transformed to reflect new power centers and new values. Modern art falls into two sharply distinct categories, based on who sponsored its creation, the state itself, or individual patrons. This division reveals how different social groups used art for different purposes and audiences. Court art was commissioned directly by the Mauryan state apparatus to serve political legitimacy and religious messaging. Ashoka's edicts on pillars exemplify state art, public, monumental, and designed to broadcast royal authority. Court art included grand palaces, inscribed pillars, and large stupas, all structures requiring state resources and central planning. These monuments dominated the landscape and made the state's presence visibly unavoidable to the population. Popular art developed through the initiative of merchants, monks, and local communities without direct royal sponsorship or state funding. It reflected grassroots religious sentiment and local aesthetic preferences rather than centralized political messaging. Popular art included cave architecture carved into hillsides, Yaksha and Yakshi sculptures, fertility and nature spirits, and northern black polished ware pottery with intricate designs. These objects circulated through trade networks and local communities, not through state distribution. For the first time in Indian history, Mauryan art shows a clear institutional separation between state-patronized monumental art and individually driven artistic expression. This distinction reveals how power was distributed, some through the state, some through merchants and religious communities. As Buddhism and Jainism rose under Kshatriya patronage, Mauryan rulers channeled state resources into stupas and pillars supporting these faiths. Simultaneously, local craftsmen and monks created smaller-scale sculptures and cave temples that embedded these religions into local sacred landscapes. What was the principal building material? What was the Iranian influence? Chandragupta's palace stood at Pataliputra, also known as Kumrahar. This site in modern Bihar was the heart of Mauryan imperial power. The Mauryan Empire was India's first powerful empire, unifying most of the subcontinent. Chandragupta's palace reflected this newfound imperial authority. The capital at Pataliputra housed palaces at Kumrahar, built deliberately to display imperial splendor. Architecture became a tool of state power. Mauryan palace design was inspired directly by Achaemenid palaces at Persepolis in Iran, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Persian architectural vocabulary shaped Indian court construction. What was the principal building material for these palaces? Not stone. This choice had major implications for survival and archaeological evidence. Megasthenes, the Greek ambassador, described Chandragupta's palace as one of the greatest creations of mankind. Foreign observers recognized its scale and sophistication. Ashoka's palace at Kumrahar was a massive three-story wooden structure with a high central pillar. It demonstrates the architectural ambitions of later Mauryan rulers. Palace walls were decorated with carvings and sculptures, evidence of integrated craftsmanship. Art and architecture functioned together in Mauryan design. Both Chandragupta's and Ashoka's palaces occupied Kumrahar, but at different periods. Distinguishing between them requires understanding the timeline of individual rulers. Mauryan palaces combine three key elements: wood construction, Kumrahar location, and Persian architectural inspiration. This formula defines the entire period's court art. Mauryan palaces at Pataliputra and Kumrahar used wood as their primary material, directly inspired by Achaemenid palaces at Persepolis in Iran. This Persian influence shaped India's first imperial architectural language. Most students think Mauryan palaces were stone structures with Greek influence. Wrong. They were built entirely of wood, inspired by Persian Achaemenid architecture at Persepolis. What explains why so little survives archaeologically today. State three purposes of Ashokan pillars. What are four parts of an Ashokan pillar from bottom to top? Ashokan pillars served three distinct functions within Mauryan statecraft. They asserted sovereign authority, commemorated military victories, and disseminated the emperor's Dhamma edicts across the realm. Each pillar was built with four hierarchical components stacked from base upward. The shaft formed the foundation, topped by the capital, then the abacus, and finally an animal sculpture. The Sarnath pillar near Varanasi is the most iconic Ashokan example. The Larya Nandangarh pillar in Champaran, Bihar remains the best preserved specimen. Ashokan pillars stood as physical manifestations of imperial authority across Mauryan territories. They marked the emperor's dominion and legitimacy over conquered regions. Many pillars were erected at battle sites to commemorate Ashoka's military conquests. This practice transformed warfare into permanent architectural monuments, celebrating state power. The pillars carried inscribed Dhamma edicts, Ashoka's moral and religious proclamations. These stone texts broadcast Buddhist and administrative principles to literate and illiterate populations alike. The animal figure crowning each pillar was placed on a square or circular stone base called the abacus. Lions, bulls, elephants, and horses served as distinctive emblems identifying different pillar sites. The abacus functioned as the architectural transition between the shaft and the crowning animal figure. Its circular or rectangular form provided structural stability and visual proportion. The capital, a section directly below the animal, displayed lotus or bell shapes. Lotus forms reflected indigenous Indian design. Bell shapes revealed Persian architectural influence. Bell-shaped capitals with their highly polished surface finish betrayed direct Iranian and Persian influence. This stylistic choice demonstrated Ashoka's openness to Hellenistic and Achaemenid design vocabularies. The shaft, the main vertical body, was carved from a single monolithic piece of Chunar sandstone. This engineering feat required extracting and shaping massive stone blocks without modern machinery. Ashokan pillars reached approximately 40 feet in height from base to animal crown. The standardized height made them visible symbols of state authority across vast distances. Chunar sandstone, quarried from sites near Varanasi, was the exclusive material for monolithic shafts. Its fine grain allowed intricate carving and withstood centuries of weathering. The Larya Nandangarh pillar in Champaran district, Bihar survives in near original condition. Its preservation makes it the most reliable source for understanding Ashokan pillar design and craftsmanship. The Sarnath pillar's lion capital was adopted as India's official national emblem after independence. This pillar near Varanasi, where Buddha preached, remains the most symbolically significant Ashokan monument. Ashokan pillars represent the epics of Mauryan court art, combining engineering, sculpture, and political messaging. Their four-part monolithic design established a template for imperial stone architecture across Asia. Which animal represents which direction? What are the elements of India's national emblem? The Sarnath pillar's abacus displays four animals arranged by cardinal direction. Each placement carries specific symbolic meaning. This directional mapping became the foundation for India's national emblem design. The national emblem combines the abacus with the animal sculptures from the Sarnath pillar, plus the inscription Satyameva Jayate below. These elements together represent India's constitutional and cultural identity. The lion faces north on the Sarnath abacus, symbolizing Buddha's attainment of enlightenment. This direction represents the highest spiritual achievement in Buddhist philosophy. The elephant faces south, representing Queen Maya's dream of a white elephant entering her womb. This animal marks Buddha's conception in the Buddhist narrative of his birth. The bull faces east, tied to the Taurus zodiac sign and the month of Buddha's birth. This placement connects celestial timing to the Buddha's earthly arrival. The galloping horse faces west, representing Kantaka, the horse Buddha rode to abandon his princely life. This animal symbolizes the moment of spiritual renunciation. The four animals appear to follow each other, turning the wheel of existence in continuous motion. This arrangement symbolizes eternity and the endless cycle of life in Buddhist cosmology. The national emblem of India officially uses the abacus and animal sculptures from the original Sarnath pillar. This choice anchors India's state symbol in Mauryan art and Buddhist heritage. Satyameva Jayate appears inscribed below the abacus on the national emblem, sourced from the Mundaka Upanishad. This Vedic phrase forms the textual core of the emblem's meaning. Satyameva Jayate translates to truth alone triumphs, expressing India's commitment to truthfulness as a foundational principle. This meaning reflects both philosophical and constitutional values. The inscription Satyameva Jayate is written in Devanagari script on the national emblem, India's official script for Hindi. This script just reinforces the Indian cultural context of the emblem. The capital of the Sarnath pillar is crowned by the Dharma Chakra, the wheel of the law. This wheel sits atop the animal abacus in the national emblem design. The Sarnath pillar was built to commemorate Dhammachakra Parivartana, Buddha's first sermon, where he set the wheel of Dharma in motion. This historical event at Sarnath explains why the site holds supreme importance in Buddhism. Satyameva Jayate comes from the Mundaka Upanishad, not the Rig Veda or Bhagavad Gita. This source distinction is critical for accurate identification in prelims questions. The Sarnath abacus places lion north, elephant south, bull east, and horse west, with these animals plus the abacus forming India's national emblem. The entire design is completed by the Dharma Chakra crown and Satyameva Jayate inscription. Most students think Satyameva Jayate comes from Rig Veda or Bhagavad Gita. Wrong. It's from Mundaka Upanishad. This Upanishadic source appears repeatedly in prelims MCQs, testing your knowledge of textual origins in Indian philosophy. Differentiate Ashokan from Achaemenid pillars on two bases. Ashokan and Achaemenid pillars differed fundamentally in how they were made and where they stood. Understanding these differences reveals Ashoka's architectural independence from Persian models. Ashokan pillars were monolithic, carved from a single shaft of Chunar sandstone without joints or seams. This single-piece construction made them structurally unique in ancient Indian architecture. Achaemenid pillars, by contrast, were assembled from multiple sandstone pieces that were cemented together. This multi-piece technique required careful engineering to maintain stability and alignment. Ashokan pillars were erected independently by royal decree, as freestanding monuments across the empire. They stood alone in public spaces, not attached to any building or palace structure. Achaemenid pillars were generally attached to state buildings like palaces and ceremonial halls. They functioned as architectural components supporting roofs rather than independent monuments. Both pillar types shared bell-shaped capitals, a distinctive flared top, and a highly polished, lustrous finish. These similarities reflect Persian or Iranian artistic influence on Mauryan craftsmen. Ashokan pillars combine monolithic construction with freestanding placement to create distinct monuments. Achaemenid pillars used multi-piece assembly and attachment to buildings, a fundamentally different approach. Most students think Ashokan pillars were also made from multiple pieces like Achaemenid pillars. Wrong. Ashokan pillars were monolithic single shafts. Achaemenid pillars were multi-piece assemblies. This monolithic technique made Ashokan pillars engineering marvels for their time. Were stupas exclusively Buddhist? What is a stupa? What was in the ninth stupa? Name the 9 locations. Which is the oldest stupa? Which is the most famous Ashokan stupa? Name the key structural parts of a stupa. Stupas served both pre-Buddhist and Buddhist functions across Indian history. Understanding this dual use clarifies why stupas aren't exclusively Buddhist monuments. Stupas were burial mounds prevalent in India from the Vedic period, not originally Buddhist inventions. The Vedic tradition of commemorating the dead through mounds predates Buddhism by centuries. A stupa conventionally represented a funeral tumulus, a mound shape where relics and ashes of the dead were kept inside. This structure served as both a tomb and a site of worship. Buddhists popularized stupas as monuments to their faith. Emperor Ashoka erected approximately 84 stupas across his empire to spread Buddhism. Stupas predate Buddhism. They are a Vedic tradition later adopted and transformed by Buddhists. This distinction is crucial for understanding the evolution of Indian religious architecture. After Buddha's death, 9 stupas were erected by different kingdoms to house his remains. This distribution reflects the political fragmentation of early India. Of the 9 original stupas, 8 contained the relics of Buddha placed at their Medhi, the raised circular base. The Medhi served as the primary relic chamber. The 9 original stupas were located at Rajgriha, Vaishali, Kapilavastu, Alkappa, Ramagrama, Retapida, Pava, Kushinagar, and Pipillan. These sites span major Buddhist centers across North India. The 9th stupa contained the pot in which the relics were originally kept, not the relics themselves. This distinction made it unique among the original 9 monuments. The anda is the hemispherical dome, the core structural element of any stupa. Its rounded shape symbolizes the dome of heaven in Buddhist cosmology. The Medhi is a raised circular terrace or base where relics were placed. This platform elevates the sacred relics above ground level. The Harmika is a square railing positioned on top of the dome. This feature encloses the upper section of the stupa. The Yashti is the central mast or pole rising from the dome's apex. It anchors all the crowning elements above. The chhatra consists of umbrellas, typically multiple tiers, mounted on the Yashti. These umbrellas symbolize royalty and protection over the sacred relics. The Torana is an ornamental gateway decorated with wooden sculptures. These gateways mark the 4 cardinal directions around the stupa. The Pradakshina Patha is an open ambulatory where devotees walk around the stupa. Circumambulation, walking clockwise, is a token of worship in Buddhist practice. Stupas were constructed with unburned bricks forming the core structure. The outer surface used burnt bricks covered with thick plaster for durability. The Medhi and Torana were decorated with wooden sculptures depicting Buddhist scenes. These artistic embellishments made stupas centers of visual religious instruction. Sanchi Stupa in Madhya Pradesh is the most famous Ashokan stupa in India. Its well-preserved condition and intricate carvings make it the finest surviving example. Piprava Stupa in Uttar Pradesh is the oldest stupa discovered in India. Its age predates even the major Ashokan stupas by several centuries. Piprava oldest, UP and Sanchi most famous, Ashokan MP represent different historical periods. Confusing these two sites costs marks on UPSC examinations. Sanchi is the most famous Ashokan stupa located in Madhya Pradesh. Piprava is the oldest stupa located in Uttar Pradesh, a critical distinction. Stupas originated as Vedic burial mounds, not Buddhist inventions. Buddhists popularized them. Ashoka built 84 stupas and 8 of the original 9 held Buddha's relics. Most students think stupas are exclusively Buddhist and that Sanchi is the oldest. Wrong. Stupas predate Buddhism Vedic tradition. Piprava in UP is oldest. Sanchi in MP is most famous Ashokan stupa. Remember this distinction for MCQs on chronology and site identification. What was the distinct feature of Mauryan cave interiors? The Mauryan period marked India's first systematic use of rock-cut cave architecture. Carving directly into hillsides became a major architectural innovation during this era. These caves functioned as viharas, permanent living quarters for Jain and Buddhist monks. Religious communities needed sheltered spaces for study, meditation, and monastic life. The Ajivika sect used caves earliest during the Mauryan period. Buddhist monasteries later adopted and expanded this cave dwelling tradition across India. Rock-cut caves featured highly polished interior walls that reflected light and created smooth surfaces. Decorative gateways marked entrances and demonstrated architectural sophistication. Barabar caves and Nagarjuni caves in Bihar stand as the primary surviving examples. Both sites preserve the polished walls and gateway designs characteristic of Mauryan work. Sarnath, grandson of Ashoka, commissioned these caves during his reign. The caves date to the later Mauryan period, not Ashoka's direct rule. Barabar and Nagarjuni caves were built under Dasharath's patronage, not Ashoka's. This distinction matters because it shows how Mauryan royal support continued after Ashoka. Rock-cut caves emerged as Mauryan innovation and served as viharas for Jain and Buddhist monks. The Ajivika sect pioneered their use before Buddhist communities expanded the tradition. Most students believe Ashoka built Barabar and Nagarjuni caves. Wrong, Dasharath. Ashoka's grandson built them during his reign. Remember this because prelims test the Mauryan succession and patronage patterns carefully. Were Yaksha by Yakshi exclusively Buddhist? Earliest mentioned. Yaksha and Yakshi sculptures adorn stupas, specifically at the Torana gateway and Medhi railing. They function both as decorative elements and religious expressions within Buddhist sacred spaces. Yaksha and Yakshi were worshipped across Jainism, Hinduism, and Buddhism, not confined to any single religion. This shared reverence made them universal religious symbols in ancient Indian culture. The earliest literary mention of a Yakshi appears in the Silpadikaram, a Tamil text from the Sangam period. This reference predates many other documented sources about these divine figures. All 24 Jain Tirthankaras were associated with their own specific Yakshi as a companion or guardian figure. This pairing was fundamental to Jain cosmology and artistic representation. Yaksha and Yakshi sculptures did not originate exclusively in Buddhism. They belonged equally to Jainism and Hinduism. Treating them as Buddhist only is a common historical misreading. The Silpadikaram, a Tamil literary work, contains the earliest known written reference to a Yakshi. This fact anchors the study of these figures in South Indian cultural history. Yaksha and Yakshi sculptures decorated both the Purana and Medhi of stupas while remaining sacred across Jainism, Hinduism, and Buddhism. The earliest literary evidence comes from the Tamil Silpadikaram. Most students think Yaksha and Yakshi are exclusively Buddhist sculptures. Wrong. They belong to Jainism, Hinduism, and Buddhism equally. The Silpadikaram's Tamil reference proves their pan-religious significance predates sectarian boundaries. What are the key characteristics of NDPW? What was its use? Northern Black Polished Ware, abbreviated NDPW, is the distinctive pottery of the Mauryan period in ancient India. It represents a significant advancement in ceramic technology and artistic achievement during this era. NDPW emerged as the characteristic pottery form during the Mauryan period, replacing earlier ceramic traditions. This pottery became the dominant fine ware used across northern India under Mauryan rule. NDPW's defining features are its black paint applied to the surface and an exceptionally lustrous, mirror-like finish. This glossy appearance was achieved through a specialized firing and polishing technique unique to Mauryan craftsmen. NDPW vessels functioned as luxury items rather than everyday domestic pottery, reserved for elite and royal contexts. Only wealthy households and courts could afford these high-quality, carefully crafted pieces. Scholars recognize NDPW as the highest level of pottery achievement in Indian history due to its technical excellence. No subsequent Indian pottery tradition matched its combination of craftsmanship, finish, and aesthetic refinement. NDPW belongs exclusively to the Mauryan era. It did not exist during the earlier Harappan period. Confusing these chronologies is a common mistake in studying Indian pottery evolution. Mauryan pottery, identified as NDPW, displays characteristic black paint and a highly lustrous finish across all vessels. Its use as luxury tableware demonstrates the sophistication of Mauryan material culture and court aesthetics. Most students think NDPW dates to the Harappan civilization. Wrong. NDPW belongs entirely to the Mauryan period, nearly 1/3 to post 400 years later. The Harappan period had different pottery styles. NDPW's lustrous black finish is purely Mauryan innovation. What materials, directions, and sources define Mauryan art, and where do students stumble on exam day? Mauryan palaces used wood as the primary building material, with excavations at Kunrahar revealing this pattern clearly. The design drew inspiration from Achaemenid Persian architecture, not Greek or stone-based, making Persian influence the critical identifying marker. Ashokan pillars were carved from single monolithic blocks of Chunar sandstone, standing roughly 40 feet tall. Each pillar consisted of 4 parts stacked vertically: the shaft main body, capital upper section, abacus platform, and crowning animal sculpture. The Sarnath capital's abacus face displays 4 animals aligned to cardinal directions. Lion faces north, elephant faces south, bull faces east, and a galloping horse faces west. MCQs frequently scramble these directional assignments to trap unprepared students. Satyameva Jayate, truth alone triumphs, originates from the Mundaka Upanishad, not the Rigveda or Bhagavad Gita as commonly confused. This phrase became India's official motto precisely because of its Upanishadic roots in Vedic philosophy. Stupas existed in Vedic tradition before Buddhism adopted and popularized them across the subcontinent. Ashoka's reign saw the construction of approximately 84 stupas, transforming them into the defining Buddhist architectural form. The original Buddhist community divided Gautama Buddha's relics among 9 stupas, 8 containing actual bodily relics, and 1 containing the pot used during distribution. The 9 stupas' contents, the pot, differ fundamentally from the other 8. Pipraha Stupa in Uttar Pradesh stands as the oldest known stupa in India's archaeological record. Sanchi in Madhya Pradesh became the most famous Ashokan stupa, but it postdates Pipraha's construction. Barabar and Nagarjuni caves in Bihar represent Mauryan rock-cut architecture built under Dasharath, Ashoka's grandson. These caves predate Ashoka's direct patronage, making attribution to his successors the correct answer in textual questions. Yakshas and Yakshis were venerated across Jainism, Hinduism, and Buddhism, not exclusively within Buddhist practice. This shared religious significance explains their prominence in Mauryan and post-Mauryan sculptural traditions. Silpadikaram, a Tamil literary text, contains the earliest written reference to a Yakshi figure in Indian literature. Its Tamil origin distinguishes it from Sanskrit compositions, making language identification crucial in textual analysis questions. Northern black polished ware NBPW features distinctive black painted surfaces with a high lustrous finish and appeared during the Mauryan period. This luxury pottery type belongs to the Mauryan era, not the Harappan civilization, making chronological placement a frequent exam trap.